Because, yeah, I guess everything and everyone needs an evil counterpart these days. FY, best FGO waifu right here. This week's episode opened with Lala repairing her ship and it not going so well. Yeah, that's what happens to me every time my circuit breaker flips. Darn it! Okay, let's see. Here we go. There. Stay. Oh shoot. He didn't see anything. The rest of her team arrived to try and help her out, but she just as quickly ejected them. Fair enough, alien spacecraft, so I can't even imagine the smartest of middle school kids being able to do anything to help. So I guess she should be able to handle everything by herself. This week, we also got more previews of Miracle Universe, including shots of the mascots having fun with the movie mascot, Emu doing something with her skirt, and more than one shot of everyone's favorite Kira Kira OTP. I only really bring them up because that one episode of Kira Kira is one of my most viewed videos right now. I know what you guys like. Also, I totally agree with one of my commenters from last week who said that Lala rocks the Kira Patty uniform better than anyone else from that series. Back to the episode at hand, in order to clear Lala's head, Hikaru and the rest of the Precure took her to the local observatory. Starting from a room that had a map of our galaxy, Lala pointed out how she couldn't find her own planet. As it turned out, the Hoshizora kingdom that she came from was in a galaxy many light years away from ours. Her planet specifically was called the Samamon. Funny, to almost think they tried to work in Ruin to that name, but maybe I'm just stereotyping. Regardless, solid world building here that may be hinting at the scope that this series might reach. They were soon greeted by Ryotaro Soromi, or Old Man Ryo as Hikaru called him. Still, in spite of that nickname, the old man was anything but senile as he noticed that Lala was suddenly speaking Japanese a lot better, and almost saw Fua. Geez, you guys really need to put a leash on that furball. To distract him, Hikaru asked if they could go to the star room, which was really just the telescope room. Apparently, Ryo's daily hobby was looking up the stars every night, and recently he had been observing an unusual phenomenon. The brightness of the night skies seemed to be fading a little. Now, while stars are constantly dying, from our planet's point of view, that shouldn't be noticeable within a short span of time, much less to an old man using fairly outdated equipment. I don't even see a computer in this room. Ryo believed it might have been his age playing tricks on him, but Lala and the other Precure knew that the stars were fading at an alarming rate due to the absence of the star princesses. Rightfully scared out of her mind by this revelation, Lala wanted to head back and fix her ship ASAP. However, Hikaru still wasn't done showing her around the observatory. Now you see, this is the kind of conflict I like, as opposed to the one we got from episode 3. Lala is right to be terrified of the fact that stars are disappearing at a noticeable rate, but Hikaru was also not wrong for wanting to calm her alien friend down a little bit. We've seen what an overexerted Lala is like, and if she were to continue to work without a break, she might only make her ship situation worse. There was actual room for a debate here, as there was no obvious right or wrong solution to this. Sure, this does feel a little familiar, but I'm sure it will lead to something completely new by the end. Right? Just as she was about to leave the observatory, Lala ran to Ryo, who took notice of his patron's frantic state. And I'm sure by complete accident, he dropped some of his flyers. Yeah, I see that smug look in your face, old man. You're not fooling anyone, especially when you make obvious sounds like this.
Who says that?
While helping the troubled old man, Lala ended up walking into the planetarium with him. He gave her a special presentation in which he talked about the constellations of the Milky Way galaxy like the Southern Cross. It was honestly a really nice little scene, as he even related the 4-star constellation to the Precure and how one day they might be able to form connections just as strong as the constellations. Really good stuff and all. But if at all possible, could we get a cute anime girl to do this instead of Santa Claus here? Also, isn't it interesting how, in spite of her Precure name, Lala probably didn't know much, if anything, about the Milky Way galaxy since she came from a galaxy far, far away. This was all likely new to the young alien girl. Meanwhile, at the Noto Raiders HQ, we got some more hinting at the big bad of the series, as well as some classic Precure villains arguing amongst themselves. a bit played out, but ultimately a trope that I do appreciate. And of course, when the villains couldn't get along, that usually meant a new one was going to take over evil duties for a little while, in this case I-1 and her servant, Bakenyan? Seriously, they're just going to replace the nickel part of Bakeneko with the Japanese equivalent of meow? Why can't we get more Star Trek references like with Capard? Anyway, their arrival outside the observatory ended up setting off Lala's compass, which pointed towards the constellation of Leo. And as it turned out, in spite of her Valley Girl appearance and speech patterns, I-1 was a scientist of the Notarators and had invented the titular new evil tool of this episode. So yeah, it's not technically an evil counterpart, but I'm sticking with that opening joke. Nah, so that's gonna stop you guys from commenting below now, is it? Still, I wonder what she could do with a corrupted star pen. Why did the animation suddenly get better? Wait, are they gonna use this as a stock animation? They're not. So from what I've been told, they're getting rid of the Monster of the Week formula for this series, which sounds good. Well, so much for that! So yeah, even though I'm not sure if this is going to become a regular occurrence, this is technically a monster of this week at the very least. And all I can say to it is, why now of all times? This show almost seemed proud of the fact that they weren't going to fall back on this old played out trope, so why the change of heart 6 episodes into the series? No joke, as soon as I saw this, I went straight to the credits to see who wrote this episode, and as it turns out, it wasn't Murayama, but rather a guy named Yuji Kobayashi. From what I can gather, he does have a lengthy tenure with toy animation, and especially with magical girl shows, including several episodes of Smile and Sweet, and had a head writer credit for all 3 seasons of Sailor Moon Crystal. Now of course, such good credentials don't always translate to quality or respect for the material, as he did write some of the worst episodes of the aforementioned Precure series, including that one. So, I can't say for sure who made the decision to do this, whether it was Kobayashi, Murayama, or the toy higher-ups. I'm kind of thinking towards that last one. But whatever the case, this is just awkward to do it right now of all times. Well, at least this did lead to something I was looking forward to, all 4 of the main cures singing at once. While there was varying quality in their animations and vocals, I have to admit, they managed to produce some very nice harmony between these 4 girls. Though their pose game could use a little work, Hikaru still looks like she's trying to do a Ryuki pose, and Madoka, well, I'm sure you can fill in the blanks. They engaged the Notarigger, as it's known, with Lala going off on her own to try and rescue the kind old man who introduced her to the galaxy she represented. It didn't work out, obviously, but then she remembered what Ryo told her about constellations. So, this is an episode where Lala learns the importance of teamwork. Play the clip.
Look, there's inductive reasoning, there's déjà vu, there's language processing, there's déjà vu.
Using 3 of their 4 signature attacks, they managed to push I-1 back far enough that it gave Lala an opening to take the dark pen, which just instantly purified in her hand. God, I love the pace of this episode so much. And much like with Hikaru and the Tauros pen, it powered up Lala's attack, though with a much cooler effect than her friends. She defeated the Notarigger, freeing Ryo in the process. However, before going to see him, the Precure had to pay their respects to Minami if she puffed out her hair more than usual. Nah, of course, it was the Leo princess. Still, Blue Lion, why does that seem so familiar to me? Anyway, after Warp starring back, they seemed to spend the rest of the day at the observatory. Thus, the episode ended with the Precure looking up at the starry night sky and Lala wishing upon a shooting star that her rocket would soon be fixed, and that she would be able to do it with her friends. Looking at this episode just by itself, it's not necessarily bad. It has problems which we will address, but more importantly, when it's put up against everything else that's come before it, it feels like they're throwing an extra ingredient into the pot, which, depending on how it's utilized from here on out, may end up throwing off the taste of the soup. Let's get the good stuff out of the way first. Old Man Ryo showed some nice subtle bits of being a very likable mentor character. He could pick up on the Precure's distress like a pro, and can come up with just the right solutions for their woes. And as always, there's some great world building here. We learned about where Lala was from, the fact that she knew next to nothing about our galaxy, again ironic considering her Precure title, and the fact that things were already going far south as stars were already disappearing. And yet, this episode also had a good lesson about not panicking even in such a dire situation, and that you can rely on your friends when things get tough. I joked about this feeling like the same lesson from episode 3, but to be fair, it is a little different here, as this is more about learning how to rely on others, rather than learning how to cooperate in spite of differing ideologies. Granted, I'm not a fan of the fact that Lala had to learn 2 team-related lessons within just a few weeks of each other. Nor am I a fan of the Monsters of the Week coming back with some very underwhelming designs. It just looks like an Oshimaida from last season, which was already kind of ripping off the Zakenna. Now I say kind of because it seems like that they might be restricted by the number of remaining star pens, which there are only 10 after this. But in that sense, it also means that they're kind of half-heartedly committing to this no monster of the week format that they were following to the T until now. Last week, I wish that the villains' appearances had stronger thematic connections to the proceedings, which I guess we kind of got here by involving Ryo, but again, it came about because they basically broke their own rules. I don't think this was a decision made by Murayama and could have been the result of Yushi Kobayashi not getting the memo, which would explain a lot of lesson rehash. I'm not conceding they're ruining everything. If used properly, maybe they could come off as more than just plain old Monsters of the Week, but right now, all I can do is let out a very apprehensive I'm just about done with part 2 of my Doki Doki review, and I'll try my best to get it out later this week. I say that because I do want to move on to other projects like All Stars Memories and reviewing a certain sequel to one of the better Precure manga I've reviewed. Look forward to all of that, as hopefully I can get myself a little bit back on track after a certain someone reset time last week. Anyway, until next time, farewell for now, my friends, and not again. Wait, did I pay the electric bill in this timeline yet?